Units and increments. You know, I never really took advantage of Maya so much as late when I had to redo my entire computer lab and I had to kind of move things around and make a model that represents the same height and width to scale. So I had to rebuild the room and just make simple objects that represent the height and width of like a desk or a chair. I never took advantage of that up until now. And another thing that you should know is in Maya, when you're porting to other things, like let's say you're porting to a game engine and the game engine is a foreign-based game engine where it relies on centimeters instead of feet and inches. That happens so many times. In fact, you know, I can name two engines right off the bat that really stress that. Unity game engine is notoriously bad for having a scale issue from Maya to Unity game engine. But as long as you know where the units and increments are, it's not a big deal. So this is where units and increments are. Window, settings and preferences, preferences. If you go to settings, you can now choose what dimensions you want. Like let's say feet. Okay. So if I have an object, let's say a polygon object, and it's roughly, the scale in X is 2 foot by 3 foot by 12 foot. That works out really good. Now I know when I click on this object represents 2 by 3 by 12. Now, if you were to go in here and say centimeters and hit save, notice it still keeps 2 by 3 by 12, but now it's the little tiny, this is actually represented a little differently. Okay, the grid is really small and the object's really big. So now it's representing meters. Okay. So if you ever want to goof something up really bad in mid pipeline, as in you're going porting from one program to the next, is change that. It will goof everything up. So kind of go in there, know what you're porting to, and then start using it. I really like to use feet. And then let's say I do port over to a program later on that relies on centimeters. Well, this is how you handle that. So now all my things were made in Maya under foot. So if I go in here and now change that to centimeters, and if I make a box, if I F on the keyboard, which is to focus. Alright, now this box right here represents 1 centimeter. If I need that to match that, I can also go like this. I can zero out the scale, or 1 is 0, and then send it crashing to the grid. And I can rescale it. When I'm done, I can now go modify, freeze transformation. Okay, now this is a box that represents 1 centimeter, and now I can use 2 centimeters by 3 centimeters by 12 centimeters. Okay. Alright, and that's how you deal with units and increments. It won't be relevant until you start using Maya to port to other programs, but know that one thing stands true. Let's say I get object that is just so big, and it starts doing this. I'm going to show you in this video how to do that rather than a video based upon cameras, because it has to do mainly with scale of the camera's view. So let's go to Window, Outliner, go to Perspective Camera, go to the Attribute Editor, and page down it's located far clipping plane. So just below the actual camera scale, there's far clipping plane, and if you add a 0 in here, you can now send out your clipping plane a little farther. Notice that also you'll have to do that for all cameras, top, front, and side, because you'll get objects that are really, really huge that you import into Maya from other things. And if you can't see the object entirely, you have to change the far clipping plane to best represent the scale of that model. So if I click on Polycube 1 and hit F, it now shows up. Okay, and that's the advantage of having Outliner open, because you can find that without surfing around a now very big world. So that is units and increments within Maya.